Welcome to another episode of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame podcast. I'm your host, Chris May. This episode features a conversation with another absolute legend, not just in Indiana basketball, but a man known worldwide by just his first name, Oscar. His accomplishments are well known, but to recap, he was a 3-year National College Player of the Year at the University of Cincinnati and set the NCAA career scoring record of nearly 3,000 points in 3 seasons. He was a co-captain of the 1960 U.S. Olympic gold medalist team. He was NBA Rookie of the Year, NBA MVP, a 12-time NBA All-Star, and a member of the 1970 NBA World Champion Milwaukee Bucks. He's inducted in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, was named as one of the 50 greatest players in NBA history, and in 2000 was named the Player of the Century by the National Association of Basketball Coaches. He is the namesake of the Oscar Robertson Trophy, given to the National College Basketball Player of the Year. But it didn't begin there. It began on the west side of Indianapolis, playing outdoors at Lockefield Gardens, and then, of course, at Crispus Attucks High School, leading the Tigers to a 1955 and 1956 Indiana High School State Championship. He was named Indiana's 1956 Mr. Basketball. Now we bring you, in his own words, the story of Oscar Robertson. Let's start with what are the memories, the emotions that are evoked when someone says Indiana high school basketball?
Well, they range quite a bit. I mean, I was happy. I mean, people think that because you're with an all-black team that somehow, man, you're unhappy. It was the happiest days of my life. I went to school, went to church, went to Tennessee to see my grandparents, and played basketball. That's all that. I mean, it was such a happy time. We never thought about anything else at all. And for us to go there and be successful, as a matter of fact, coming over, I thought about some of the guys I played it with. Some of the guys I played it with from the 7th grade until we graduated from the varsity basketball team, which means a lot. It means a lot to me.
So I'm assuming those relationships mean a lot. Those guys you grew up with and played basketball with.
Oh, of course, because I mean, how do you become better unless you have played against some great competition and played in Lockefield, of course, and it was just a way of life, I mean, to compete in football, baseball, basketball. And then basketball erupted into the giant that it was for Crispus Attucks and also for the whole state. And it was just a wonderful time, to be honest.
At what point did basketball become your thing?
Well, I don't know, but I love baseball. I played a lot more baseball than I did basketball, honestly. I guess when Bailey hit the shot that propelled Attucks to the state for the first time, then all of a sudden the competition where we played just really picked up. It got tougher because if you didn't win, you didn't get to play. And it gave the whole school goals to shoot for. Because although they got beat, it wasn't. No one ever said, "Hey, we're going to go out and win a championship." It was just the idea we had reached this plateau, and we weren't thinking about another plateau. We just wanted to get back there again and do all the things and make ourselves more successful than the last team was.
So seeing the success of the teams before you helped motivate you?
It did, because you didn't realize they were there. I mean, until I saw that game on TV, and I don't even know why I watched the game. I had never seen a basketball game on television. That was the first one I've ever seen. Attucks played Anderson.
Before then, you'd never seen a game?
No, I'd never seen a game on TV. I didn't hardly watch television when I was growing up. I was out playing ball all the time. So we had a TV. It was, I'm thinking like 6 or 7 inches. I guess diagonally across. I'd never watched television. I just never thought about it, to be honest.
What did that previous team going to state do for your family, for your neighborhood?
I don't think it did anything for our family. I don't know whether or not my mother and father even realized he had made the shot until, I guess, when my father went to work, my mother went to work, they were talking about it then. But because my brother never said anything about it at all. It just a shot. I saw the shot go in, and I didn't realize the significance of it until I went back to school later on. They said, hey, they're going to go to the state for the first time, state finals.
But at home, that wasn't a big deal to your parents?
No one ever mentioned anything about it at home. Not at all.
Did you go to the games when your brother was playing?
No. 53, I must have been about, 12 years old. I mean, I didn't go anywhere when I was 12 years old.
So when you're in elementary and middle school, you're not going to the high school games?
No, I didn't go to any basketball games, other than I played in some basketball games for the Lockefield Pal Club. That's the only time I went out to a basketball venue at all.
So what's your first memory then of your first game, not at the Gardens, but the first game you played for Attucks? Do you recall that?
First game I played in, we played against Fort Wayne Northside at Tech High School. I came off the bench. I don't know what I did, but it was just it's almost like it was a movie script because I'd done these things so many times outside in the park. I was just doing the same thing then as I did in the park, faking guys, going to jump shot, rebounding, playing defense. I was just doing it over and over again.
Were you a freshman or a sophomore then?
I was a sophomore at that point.
And so what's that experience as a sophomore like? And then what are your goals and your aspirations at that point?
I had no goals or aspirations. I was young. I didn't know anything. What did I know? I didn't know anything at all. I just wanted to play because a lot of guys on the team I knew very, very well. Some I didn't know as well. And you just want to compete, You have to, people think that every time you get involved with hitting a tennis racket or baseball or throw a football, you got some goals. You don't. Sometimes you're just there. And then you get goals. Then you get things you want to do at that point, after that point, because if you don't attain some type of success, your goals don't mean anything.
So hearing about your background and those experiences when you're younger, did you have any basketball role models, a hero, anybody you wanted to emulate?
Well, probably the Globetrotters, Goose and Tatum and Marcus Haynes, guys like that. I didn't know anyone else in basketball other than some of the guys that played on the local high school team. I didn't know anybody in basketball at all. I saw the Indianapolis Olympians play briefly, but because of some problems they were having, they didn't stay here very long at all. So that's all. That was my basketball gurus, I would say, Goose Tatum, Marcus Haynes, and the Globetrotters.
So all the moves you developed, did you create those on your own?
Just watching people out in the park, reading books, watching different players, probably from reading books and watching and playing in the park. There were no highlight films, anything like you have today, of anyone playing basketball whatsoever. So all you could do is read and you watch guys in the park. There were some great basketball players in the park. And you try to emulate them, try to do the same things they did because some guys were very, very successful.
Were those guys that were playing at Attucks or other high schools in the city?
Actually, a lot of these guys who were great outside never played organized basketball. I don't know why, but for some strange reason, when they got on the court, they just could not deliver. But outside in the park, boy, you couldn't stop those guys at all. They're great basketball players.
As you moved from that sophomore season to your junior year, which would become historic, what kind of expectations did you have for that 55 season? Did you know you had something special coming?
Not really, because actually on the 55 team, the only people that I know that really played, that went on to the varsity team that played a lot was myself and I think Bill Brown may have been off the bench and Bill Scott, Sam Milton. I don't know if James Enoch played or not, but other than that, we only had 3 or 4 guys to go forward. Now, Shedrick Mitchell played some, but I think he got hurt. He was hurt today. He was not hurt, so he played half the season. He didn't play a full season for us. So we had Shedrick Mitchell, myself, and that was about it as far as starting or playing a lot of basketball.
So coming into it, no idea the season's going to unfold the way it does?
No, none whatsoever.
So with no great expectations coming into that season, how did that all play out?
Here again, we just wanted to play. We wanted to compete. There was no thought about losing games. We never thought we could win all the games. We didn't think about the state championship team. We just played it, almost like one game at a time. Because to be honest, during those days, to me, the sectional and the city tournament was bigger than the state fight. It was difficult to get out of those 2 venues. I mean, the city tournament was just Jesus. It was just tough. We played Shortridge, Tech, Broad Ripple, Howe, Washington. I mean, those guys had real good basketball teams.
Do you remember some of the games, whether they were the city tournament or the sectional against some of those teams?
Oh, sure. I remember almost all of them. A lot of them stick out. And I know that we beat Shortridge. Let's play them sophomore, junior, and senior. They wouldn't play us during the regular season. We beat them every time. And Tech beat us once during my career. Beat us once, maybe 1 out of 4. The rest of the teams, Howe beat us once. And that's about it in the city.
What was the atmosphere in the building when you played at Shortridge or at Tech?
Well, I think they had to take the games from Tech out to Butler Fieldhouse because of the crowds and because it was just Tech seated 5,000, I believe, but it was not big enough. And it just consumed the city, to be honest. I mean, people come on to see the Tigers play. And we played some pretty good teams. We played Fort Wayne one year. We played a South Bend team. These teams were all ranked. I don't remember us after my junior year playing any teams that were not ranked. Although we played Connersville. Connersville beat us one year when I was in 1955, and every time I hear someone from Connersville, they always bring that up. But they seem to forget. We played them in the tournament. We beat them by 50-some points. But I understand. But I understand that, and it's great to talk about that, especially when you win.
Take me back to what it was like to play in Butler Fieldhouse.
Actually, I played in a game at Butler Fieldhouse when I was with the Powell Club before I got into high school. It's almost like the greatest thing that ever happened. I mean, you hear so much about Butler Fieldhouse when you're 11, 12 years old, and then you get to play there. It seemed so enormous, you just couldn't quite understand it. Couldn't quite understand it at all. But playing at Butler Fieldhouse was great. It was good court. People loved it. We played some very good basketball teams, all teams here in the city and teams from outside of the city. And that's, just great competition, it just gets you ready for anything in sports, down the road. I mean, we got, as I said before, the city tournament got us ready for everything in the sectionals, semifinals, and regionals, and the finals. Got us ready for everything.
We like to romanticize about Hinkle Fieldhouse, Butler Fieldhouse. We talk about the crowds, the smell of the popcorn, the bands. Does any of that resonate with you?
No, not really. I think the attraction is that Coach Hinkle was there, and he's great coach. Been around a long, long time. Did a lot for not only for Butler but for the city of Indianapolis, and just his name being connected with the Butler Hinkle Fieldhouse. That created an atmosphere in itself. Of course. I mean, and everyone wanted to play there. I mean, that's where they held the state, a lot of tournaments, and also the state finals. So that's where you wanted to play. You wanted to play there.
What was the community support like during your junior and senior years? Does that resonate with you?
No, I don't know if we got any support from the city other than Crispus Attucks people. I don't think a lot of other schools in the city cared about us winning. They wanted to see us get beat.
And I suppose that's what I was really asking. The Attucks community, what was that like?
Oh, it was great. I mean, just think of a person going to work, been working all his life, and every time someone beat teams prior to the 55 and 54 up, they said, "Oh, we're gonna beat you guys," and they did. But just think, this guy goes to work in 55. We were wearing teams out, and he's betting and winning money, and he's rubbing it in on somebody. Just think how that feels. I think it has created a atmosphere for a lot of people to make them feel good, especially black people. I mean, during those days, no one said good things about black people. No one said good things about Crispus Attucks. No one said Oscar Robertson was a smart basketball player. The only one that I can remember who really lit the torch and kept it going was Bob Collins. And the Angelopoulos brothers, and I forget Jimmy and Angelo. I've spoke to them quite a few times, but Bob is the one who carried the torch. But he carried the torch because we were playing, we were competing. He was a sports writer. What could he write about? If he couldn't write about us winning, what could he write about? But people didn't like it.
So at that age, did you feel an us versus them mentality?
Oh, you always felt that way. I mean, come on. When you grew up in Colton Street and you go and start playing basketball with white referees, oh, come on, man. We still overcame that, and I don't care what anyone says. They can say, "Oh, God, Oscar, why you bring these things up?" Because it happened. I mean, we played a team here in the city of Indianapolis once. They shot 45 to 50 free throws, and we shot maybe 12 or 13. Isn't that unusual? I mean, when you saw this, I couldn't believe the stats when I saw that. The disparity among free throws in this basketball game. And there were a lot of other games, and Ray had his thoughts were, hey, listen, let's go get it. Let's go get him. Let's get up on him real fast so the referees cannot have an opportunity to get involved that much in the game.
Did that create any greater sense of camaraderie or a bond with your teammates?
It's normal because, we were born in the South, came up here on the back of the bus, couldn't go downtown to Indianapolis to do anything, couldn't go here. So that's the way life was in America. I knew the things we couldn't do and couldn't do. I mean, people, if my parents didn't tell me the guys where you live, would certainly let you know what you could do and what you couldn't do. So you learn. I mean, it's like anything, like any parent, any groups of people who oversee younger people. They tell you the do's and don'ts.
So when you get your hands on that first state championship trophy, what goes through your mind?
It was just happy. I mean, just happy like any kid playing basketball in Indiana, happy that we won, and nothing else mattered whatsoever. We didn't think about race relations. We didn't think about referees. We didn't think about the Crispus Attucks people. We didn't think about people from Indianapolis. We thought about us winning that championship. It was wonderful. We enjoyed the moment.
I'm curious because of your success at so many different levels. When people approach you and mention Indiana high school basketball, how do you explain what that heritage is all about in our state?
Well, I think many years ago, I would say it was King of the Mountain because of Johnny Wooden, Hinkle, coach at J. McCrary up at Muncie, how most of these guys from these schools, went to colleges and started teaching fundamentals, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it was just amazing how many high school coaches left Indiana basketball and went on to colleges. And when you talked about basketball, it was you didn't mention Kentucky, Illinois. It was Indiana basketball.
When you got into high school, what was your motivation? What really drove you to play?
I always tell the story that when I was a sophomore, I was going to go out for the reserve basketball team, and a friend of mine, Bill Mason, Flute Mason, he encouraged me to go out for the varsity. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone out for the varsity team whatsoever. I didn't know I had that option. Just to show you how naive you are, I didn't know that a sophomore could go out for the varsity basketball team. Never heard of it. But he encouraged me to go, and I'm glad he did.
Did you think Indiana basketball players had good fundamentals?
I think that before I played, while I played, after I played, they were the best fundamental coaches in the world right here in Indiana. Because you see some of the players play, it's obvious that they could get it done. Some players were not that gifted athletic speaking, but they know how to box out, they know how to guard, know how to pass, they could shoot. And so who teaches you that stuff? If you don't learn to play in Indiana basketball, and you don't have the coaches there to tell you, you're never going to learn it. Because I don't think you learn a lot of fundamental ball once you get out of high school, once you get into college. I think either you have it or you don't. Either you can shoot or you can't shoot. I don't think you can learn how to shoot. Now, you can work on free throws because in a free throw, you stop, you're concentrating. But when you're moving around and people are dashing at you back and forth, it's action, reaction. It's a little different story. You don't have time to sit there and look at that free throw and then push it in. You got to act instinctively, quickly, and decisively.
And it sounds like you developed those skills outdoors at Lockefield Gardens.
Oh, you had to. I mean, as I said before, if you don't win, you don't play. So that was an incentive in itself, and it was a great theater for kids learning to play basketball. It got to be a point where they had the Dust Bowl basketball tournament. Teams from all over came there to play. I mean, white teams as well, and it was a wonderful setting. I mean, I'm just so sorry that they didn't continue that. But time goes on.
You said you played a lot of baseball, but at what point did you hold a basketball and say, yeah, this is what I really want to do?
Well, I never did. I never thought that I was in it better than anyone else. I just kept plodding away, get in the park and you do something, and the guy steals the ball from me and says, how can that guy get away from doing that? And I can't. So you just keep trying. And after a while, boom, you get enough confidence in yourself that you try anything at that point. And that's when you become a basketball player. When you have confidence in yourself to try anything. And you might make some mistakes, of course, but you're not afraid to try. You're not afraid to fail. And most of the time you're going to be successful getting it done. And that's all you can ask, really.
So what did it take to succeed out there?
Well, you couldn't just play with your buddies. In order, you had to challenge the older guys and to play. And luckily we beat them. And that propelled us on because I started to grow a little bit. The other guys started to grow and get a little heavier and whatnot. When you're freshmen and thin and as a rail, they just kill you. Because they didn't call many fouls on the outside. They didn't call many fouls at all. But then you got little size on you. You could push back. You could hold back. You could box them out better. You could play through fouls and all those things. That's what becoming a basketball player is all about.
I've heard George McGinnis say he came down to the Gardens to see you play. Was there ever a time where you realized you're making an impression out there, guys are looking up to you?
I never thought about that. I just knew that I could play. When I ever got on court, I did certain things to test the defense, see what he was doing, which is something a lot of guys don't do, but I did it. And I just, in a team concept, playing guard, I knew I had to get the team together, not individually, but all together in order to win. I knew that certain plays didn't work for us, and some did. And so the ones that don't work, you don't use them that much.
But at some point, you have to realize you're a hero and kids are emulating you. Did that come later?
Yeah, much later. I didn't think about it. I mean, being heroes. I don't know what heroes are. I don't even know what that means. I think it's a word thrown around too much. I was just to the point, and not only by myself, but there were a lot of other guys at the same point who felt that we could play basketball, we could dribble and shoot, and we could do all these things. So that's what I felt, and I was not the only one.
When you think about your high school career, did you have a favorite place to play?
Well, it had to be Hinkle, no doubt about it. No, we were successful there. We played a lot of big teams, ranked teams, and we were successful beating them, so it didn't matter, we didn't fear competition, and I think when you're on the court, I think a lot has been made out of us playing a lot of games on Butler Fieldhouse floor, and then we got such an advantage. Man, the basket's 10 feet. It's not 12 feet for us and 11 or 9. It was 10 feet. But that's going to show you what the Attucks team did and what influence they had for the influence of thinking of other teams and whatnot. Because I know for a long time we used to dunk the ball coming out. And Coach Hinkle came to Ray Crow because coaches were complaining about it. He said, oh, boy, those guys are dunking the ball, our guys are watching. So they got Coach Hinkle to tell Ray Crow, tell him not to dunk the ball. Coach Hinkle said, well, because they might tear his basket down. But that wasn't the reason. So we stopped dunking. Didn't matter, though. As I said before, the basket was 10 feet.
What did you think about playing in progressively larger venues, playing at Butler Fieldhouse?
Well, you had to go to larger places, and that's what I mentioned about people who didn't want us playing at Butler Fieldhouse. It was not choosing. I mean, the High School Athletic Association said, hey, we can make money out of this, we can get 13,000, 14,000 in Butler Fieldhouse versus 5 at Tech. They're going to take it. And they took it every time.
I've heard people say they bought their first television to watch you play. How does that make you feel?
To be honest, I didn't know the games were on television. I thought they were on the radio because a guy named Luke Walton who did the broadcast, but I didn't know they were on television at all. Never knew it. I really didn't know it at all. But that's going to show you, how naive you can be when you're growing up. Well, I just didn't know. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything at all.
Let's revisit newspaper writer Bob Collins. You said he carried a torch for you guys. Did that mean anything to you?
Yes, he did. Didn't really know didn't know Bob that well when he first started doing this. I guess he befriended Ray Crow, and being a sports writer, he wrote about what was going on the court. And later on, I got to know Bob better through Ray Crow. I didn't know him per se myself, where I could call Bob up and chat and whatnot. I just knew him through Ray Crow, and he developed a following. I'm sure that the following, the people who understood basketball, really loved him. He didn't write about any race relations or bias situations at all. Not that I know of. It's ironic how you find so many things after the fact, and when a person's around you to say something to them. You're so backwards about things. You don't know anything, and then now he's gone, and you can't tell him.
How do you think basketball became such a big part of life in Indiana?
I think sports are wonderful. That's why I always said that the Olympics is the greatest sports spectacle I've ever been to in my life. And then you go back to Indiana. These people are so engrossed in it. Whether they're for you or against you. And then you get to Indiana Kentucky All-Star game, and man, that's the hardest ticket in the world. And to be able to play against the Kentucky All-Stars, I had to coach Angus Nickerson, but it's just something that you keep with you all your life. You never forget those things. But basketball in Indiana was a unique situation that I don't think was ever going to happen again like that. Not because we won. I just don't think you have the people around that teaches kids how to play. About attitudes about when you're on the court. Because on the court, we couldn't say a word to anybody. Ray Crow had us. We couldn't even say any word to anybody. You don't have those coaches anymore. I don't think coaches even know about these kind of things. They say they do, but I don't really think they do.
Would you say your basketball success was partly because of the environment you grew up in?
Times are different. Everything is different. See, I always tell people, which I'm sure a lot of people not understand this, that we had no money, couldn't go anywhere. Greatest thing ever happened for Oscar Robertson. He learned to compete. I got out there with guys, we must have 20 or 30 basketball players, football, baseball players. We competed against each other, man. It was just, in the suburbs, you don't get that. You don't get that at all. You have to understand that, guys could dunk balls, block shots. You see them now, if a guy blocks a shot, boy, they say, boy, he's greater than sliced bread. Well, man, guys, we knew block shots all the time. Dunk the ball, dribble behind their back, through their legs, made looping passes and shot hooks, sky hooks, and all these things that you see people do today. And all of a sudden, someone does it now. He says, boy, he's great. He's averaging 8 points a game, but he's great.
What did you take away from playing basketball?
Basketball got me an education, got me to be a worldly person as far as reading articles, got me to be artistic and understand the cultures of the world, the ballet, the opera. It just opened up your whole mind and thoughts about things other than what you can reach out and touch. You wonder why do we have oceans? What about the universe? I mean, come on, man. You know how big the universe is? We never think about that here. The universe is endless. It's to a point, then you read about civil strife. Why do we have civil strife in America? Why do we have slavery? Why do we have so many skirmishes and warlike situations in the world? I mean, I think education opened that up to me. I got to travel a lot around the world, met a lot of people, a lot of dictators, a lot of different people who ran countries and whatnot. My basketball got me to school. I went to a school, went to an all-white school, per se, Cincinnati. But, you grow up. I went from an all-black situation to all-white. But you grow up. You learn differently. You learn people, which is a big thing in the world today.
Thank you very much, Oscar. As a reminder, you can visit the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame online at hoopshall.com. Souvenirs, information, and upcoming events. Plus, we want you to plan a visit to our 14,000 square foot museum in Newcastle very soon. Also, follow us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram. And most importantly, if you enjoy the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame podcast, please share on social media with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and Stitcher. Thanks again for joining us. I'm your host, Chris May, and we hope you'll tune in again soon for the next edition of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame podcast.